to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's in-person and online worship. Whether today is your first time here or you've been coming for years, we're so glad you're with us. My name is Denise Curry, and my pronouns are she and her, and I am a member of the worship committee. We are a growing community that transforms lives through the power of love. Our mission calls us to celebrate diversity, encourage spiritual growth, and promote social responsibility while we travel on and care for the earth. A special welcome to those at home who are joining us on Zoom today. And if you're attending for the first time, please go to the website and fill out the welcome card so we can know more about you. So I have a few announcements today. A celebration of life for longtime member of this congregation, Janet Stover, will be held here in the sanctuary this Wednesday at 5 p.m., and everybody is welcome. And Steve Hansen is going to come up and make an announcement.
Good morning. I'm the exciting chair of the stewardship committee, and we've decided, I'll take it. Okay, and we're having a St. Patrick's Day stewardship potluck on March 9th, and as an incentive to get everybody to come, the board has authorized us to have a little lottery for the auction winner's parking spot for the rest of the year. Okay, and also we'll probably have some Guinness there in case that you're so inclined. Okay, well, thank you very much.
Double incentive. I would now like to call Kate Sullivan up and Connie Cross for another announcement.
Good morning. My name is Kate Sullivan, and I'm a member of the Worship Committee and the Ferry Beach Retreat Committee. Our Tri-Church Ferry Beach Retreat will soon... Oh, good grief. It's Silly Quilly all the way from Ferry Beach. Silly, would you stop that nonsense and tell us why you have flown all the way up here? Oh, okay. She wants everyone to know about our Ferry Beach weekend that's coming up in May. All right. She says you can come for the whole weekend or just on Saturday as a commuter. She says you'll have a wicked good time, whether you're young, middle-aged, or old. She says there will be fun things to do, lots of delicious food, and a chance to have great talks with your friends from A2U2 and the Auburn and Norway UU churches. She says, see you at the beach.
Now we invite you to take this opportunity to silence your cell phones so that we can be fully present to one another. After the service, please grab a cup of coffee in the kitchen window and stay for conversation, or head down to the end of the long hallway to join a group for the brown bag brunch. Those on Zoom may stay on and connect with one another. And now let us center our hearts and minds with the ringing of the chimes.
Good morning, strange and delightful church. I do love you. My name is Reverend Tara, and I use they and she pronouns, and I am the minister here at Allen Ave UU Church, A2U2 for short. It is good to be with you today. Our opening words this morning come from my dear mentor in ministry, the Reverend Heather Ryan Starr. On this day, as with so many Sundays, we come in from the whirling world. The wind, the bright sun, the push and pull of tides and time, from the tumult of global news and local stories, the pain we hear of, the demands on our spirits, the do this now culture we live in. We come into this sanctuary from that windstorm. It can leave us feeling stirred and unsettled. When we give our attention to what's going on around and beyond us in this throbbing world, we can feel windblown. We need places where we can come and find our grounding once again. Come in. Come in from the wind. Come in from the whirl. May this be a place where we can experience genuine stillness, even if just for a few moments. May this be a place we can count on. May this be a place of learning and of nourishment. Friends, come and be welcome. You are joyfully called to worship. And as we light our sanctuary chalice this morning, those of you who are joining us on Zoom are invited to get a chalice or candle and light it so that we might be connected to one another more deeply. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions of all there is, embodying justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force to love, celebrating our shared humanity. Out of the flames, each of us, we rise. We light our second candle this morning, a candle of community. In memory of Nex Benedict, non-binary high school student who we lost to transphobic violence in Osawa, Oklahoma. There are no words for this tragedy. May our flame be a visual reminder to each of us of our affirmation that non-binary and trans lives are sacred, beloved, holy, and whole. May we rise up to do the work to make it so. Will you take a breath with me? Our opening hymn this morning is number 1 in the gray hymnal, May Nothing Evil Cross This Door. Dale will play it through once, and then you are invited to rise in body or in spirit and join your voices in song. So our kids are not in the sanctuary this morning. Well, maybe a couple of them are, but they're making pancakes, which means that the adults in this room have to engage with me on this wisdom story. Does anybody know why this service is called Faith, Doubt, and Thomas? Doubting Thomas. Who is Doubting Thomas? One of the apostles. Who? He put his finger in Jesus' wound. Anything else? Sounds right. Yeah. When he was asked if he knew Jesus, he said no. Anyone else? Yeah.
Isn't there a book, but it wasn't part of the canon?
Wasn't canonized. This story is in the Gospel of John, but I'm sure there are non-canonized texts about Thomas as well. Oh yeah, you're exactly. I know what you're talking about. Yes. Apocrypha. Anyone else? So, Jesus, that guy, rose from the dead, right? We'll talk about that later. and then the disciples were talking about it. Oh my God, can you believe what happened? Can you believe that happened? We'll talk about belief later too. And Thomas was like, yeah, probably not. Thomas might have been a Unitarian Universalist. And so eventually, he really wasn't buying it. And so eventually he did see Jesus, and Jesus asked something like, do you know who I am? I'm kind of a big deal. And Thomas was like, prove it. So Thomas it's kind of gross, but Thomas sticks his hand into Jesus' wound from the cross and is like, got it. You're right, you are. You are who you say you are. And that's the story. That's really all I have to say about it. We'll talk more about it later, but one of the things I just want to the little wisdom nuggets I want to leave you with is that even so, Thomas, the doubter, is known as one of the disciples. So what does it mean to both be a doubter and still be a disciple? Think about it. Responsive reading this morning, which George will put up on the screen. It comes from our hymnal. I adapted it a bit. It's written by Robert Weston. I will read the text after my name, and you can please respond with the text after congregation. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the attendant of truth.
Doubt is the key to the door of knowledge. It is the servant of discovery.
A belief which may not be questioned binds us to error, for there is incompleteness and imperfection in every belief.
Doubt is the touchstone of truth. It is an acid which eats away the false.
Let no one fear the truth, that doubt may consume it, for doubt is a testing of belief.
The truth holds boldly and unafraid. It is not shaken by the testing.
For truth, if it be truth, arises from each testing stronger, more secure.
Those that with silence doubt are filled with fear. Their houses are built on shifting sands.
But those who fear not doubt and know its use are founded on rock.
They shall move in the light of growing knowledge. The work of their hands shall endure.
Therefore, let us not fear doubt, but let us rejoice in its help.
Doubt is the attendant of truth. Good morning. We are a freely gathered, open, and welcoming faith community supported by your contributions. Each week, 1/3 of our offering is given away to a nonprofit organization whose mission aligns with our Unitarian Universalist values. This month's Share the Plate recipient, chosen by our coming-of-age youth, is Rewild Maine, whose mission is to deepen the connections between people, each other, and the earth through land stewardship, education, and community. Donations can be made now as the basket is passed through the donate button on our website, or, if you are a member, on Breeze. If giving through Breeze, please note if the donation is your pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. If you are visiting us for the first time this morning, please know that your presence is your gift to us. At this time, our offering will be collected and gratefully received.
Our reading this morning comes from chapter 9 in a beautiful book called Black Liturgies, Prayers, Poems, and Meditations for Staying Human by Cole Arthur Riley. She writes, "Much of my skepticism is born of an unhealthy distrust. Maybe some of it is also born of wisdom. Often when we demand that someone be sure or think the same thing about God as us, it is because we are terrified to confront our own doubts. We experience their liberation as a threat. In this way, religious certainty can be seen as a product of white supremacy. The tyrant thrives on subjugation, survives by a lack of questioning, by people who act and believe, or say they believe, without challenging those in power. If your belonging depends on whether you ascribe to the beliefs of a spiritual leader, it is not belonging, it is bondage. When someone's friendships and community are at stake, how can they be expected to become curious or honest with themselves in their own spiritual exploration? I am convinced the vast majority of evangelical Christians are feigning belief in oppressive doctrines because they are terrified of being cast out of their communities, of losing loved ones. On mission to retain their belonging, we encourage them to deceive even themselves. I no longer demand belief where there is tension. If the divine is all-knowing, I suspect they understand why I find it difficult to believe in a God who is loving and kind and listening at all in a world of so much sorrow and injustice. Our doubts are credible, our disbelief human. And I see no need for us to force one another to resolve them under the false promise of salvation or nearness to the holy. I'm not a person of certainty. It is not a lack of conviction that I feel, rather a complete conviction of divine mystery. I've never heard the voice of God. I've never felt them calling out to me in the pits of despair. I don't know what I think about the Trinity, and I don't know a thing about heaven or hell or the in-between. I know that trees die and come back to life, and it's beautiful. And the right sunset steadies my breath. I know that my sister will answer when I call, and she'll always take the first sip when I don't trust the milk. I know my name and the sound of my grandmother's voice speaking it. Maybe this is what belief will always look like for me. Fragments of beauty at rest with divine mystery. My God has another name. Cherish your doubts. Cherish your doubts, for doubt is the key to the touchstone of knowledge, the touchstone of truth, the servant of discovery. The words of Robert Weston. I am reminded each year I teach a new A2U2 class, usually in session 2, which focuses on Unitarian Universalist theology, of the importance of doubt. I am reminded that doubt is a bedrock of Unitarian Universalist faith. That doubt is what led many of you through these doors for the first time. That doubt, perhaps more than anything else, is why this living tradition ever came to live in the first place. We are, theologically speaking, descendants of heretics, after all, descendants of doubters. Our Unitarian forebears began to doubt the doctrine of the Trinity in their Christian tradition. They affirmed the humanity over the divinity of Jesus and shifted their focus on his humanistic teachings of justice and love. They affirmed the unity, the oneness of the divine. Our Universalist forebears began to doubt the doctrine of predestination and the concept of a God that damned some people and saved others. They affirmed an all-loving, all-embracing God with an embrace large enough for even the worst behaved humans. That God himself was love, that there was space for all. And we are not a people who agree on theology, are we? Or even use or resonate with the same words to describe our faith. This diversity is one of our superpowers, and it can be hard. Some of you have told me that you wish we would dive into Scripture and the Bible more often. Others of you have expressed discomfort with the use of these same sources. Some of you have felt seen and affirmed and inspired by my using the word God. I've heard from others of you and spoken at length about how it makes you uncomfortable, and you have at times felt dismissed. I think about this conundrum on a daily basis. This is the challenge and the promise of Unitarian Universalism. Our beliefs are different. Our doubts are different. Our language preferences are different, and yet we have chosen to believe, to doubt, and to live in relationship with one another. Messy. Holy. In the second session of the New A2U2 class, I often ask participants to join me in an interactive exercise, which you may have done before in a different setting. The length of the room is a spectrum, with one end representing absolutely for sure yes, and the other end of the spectrum, hell no. I offer a series of theological statements, and the participants travel to a spot along the spectrum that aligns with their perspective. For example, I have had a spiritual experience or an encounter with the divine. Absolutely yes, hell no. Or, life has meaning. They roll their eyes at me, or glare, or laugh, and usually say something like, "Are you kidding me?" And then once they find their spot along the spectrum, we share out loud why we chose to be where we are, and that's where the doubt emerges. The questions. My favorite thing that happens, and it happens every time, is when somebody stands all the way over on the no side, and someone else stands all the way over on the yes side, and when they say why they're there, they say exactly the same thing. This is where the magic happens. So it is in our living tradition. And of course, we all have a different relationship to doubt, and we doubt and question different things. I use the word God not because I want you to believe in God or doubt in God. I don't actually have a theological agenda for you. I want you to be curious. I want you to ask questions, to be both convicted and open to change. That's what I want for myself, too. I use the word God as shorthand for something I understand to be way beyond my comprehension. That there are as many concepts of this thing as there are people, probably more. And I put my trust in you, my congregation, to translate that word in a way that is meaningful to you. It is theological work I can accompany you in, but that I cannot do for you. Your holy doubt, your questions, and your curiosity will be some of your greatest assets and strengths in taking up that work. In her over 500-page book, Doubt, A History, Jennifer Michael Het remarks that only in modern times is doubt equated narrowly with a rejection of faith. She continues, the thing is, most doubters throughout history, even if they doubted all the way to not believing any kind of religious idea, most of them don't hate religion. Most of them aren't against religion. They are, in fact, more like religious thinkers, these great doubters, than the average person who doesn't ask any of these questions and sort of just goes along. The great doubters have tried to figure out how you can live, and they have very much respected the answers that religion has come up with. They just have to fill in certain parts differently. And if you don't think that, for instance, mortality or morality comes from some outside source, sometimes mortality does, but if you don't think that morality comes from some outside source, it immediately gives you an incredible amount of responsibility. They are more like religious thinkers, these great doubters, than the average person who doesn't ask any questions. Let's talk a bit about Thomas for a moment, shall we? Doubting Thomas, refusing to believe without direct personal experience. I am both inspired by and slightly disturbed by Thomas and his need for evidence. On the one hand, he's a tactile guy. He needs to get his hands on things, experience them for himself in order to wrap his head around a piece of truth. He's the kind of guy who might inquire, but how do you know? Or demand, let me see it. We all know those people. We might be them. On the other hand, it disturbs me a little that he can't just believe that Jesus is who he says he is, that he inserts himself and his doubts into the relational dynamic of this story and needs his own evidence to discern the truth. And all of this has me wonder, where's the line? Can we take doubt too far? Where can our celebration of doubt and question asking get us into tricky waters in our lives and in our relationships? Especially in the face of power differentials and varying life experiences. Now, I've noticed a temptation in myself at times to ask questions with the ultimate goal of unsettling someone's argument and proving that I'm right. There are those among us who slip into the devil's advocate role, perhaps because it feels useful to introduce missing perspectives, or perhaps because it's easier than committing to a viewpoint ourselves. We've all seen doubt play out in politics and on the global stage time and time again in both directions. In the face of scientific evidence of climate change, we still have people who doubt. who question what others understand to be objective truth. This is incredibly frustrating. We have research, we have data, and it's also incredibly painful, for there are real people directly impacted by our changing climate in the global south and in our own country who are naming their truths and experiences only to be questioned, to be doubted. Think about the Me Too movement, a global survivor-led movement against sexual violence. One of the ways we create the conditions for normalizing all kinds of identity-based violence, sexism, racism, transphobia, in our communities and in our culture is by doubting those who name their truths. This is called gaslighting. Out of the Me Too movement arose the hashtag #BelieveWomen. When someone says they are harmed, believe them. Don't question the perpetrator's intentions or whether or not the victim's memory is correct. Listen and believe them and take action accordingly. This plays out in smaller ways in our communities closer to home. So often we question and doubt those who share their direct personal experience of microaggressions and harm with us. Not because we want to dismiss people, but because often we're working out in the moment how we can fit someone else's truth with our own schema of what we know to be true. Doubts arise, questions emerge. But if we're not careful about how we approach our doubt, in these moments we can cause real harm. What do you make of all of this? Of this celebration of doubt, of this nervousness around harm? How can we both cherish our doubts and also remain open to believing those who are brave enough to share their truths and their experiences with us? What might it look like for your doubt to rise up from a deep knowing of your own truth rather than the doubting of somebody else's? Like most questions I ask you, there is no easy answer, and there is no right answer, but there is the process and the practice and the discipline of continuing to ask. Doubt is a strong thread in our theological DNA. It's part of our history. It's part of who we are and why we are the way we are. It's one of our superpowers. But it is we who decide how we will use it. And so may we be faithful in our process. And perhaps we will be surprised by what we find. May it be so, and blessed be. Our closing hymn this morning is number 354 in your gray hymnal. We laugh, we cry. We will sing only verses 1 and 4, which will be reflected on the screen. Dale will play through once, and then you are invited to rise in body or in spirit as we join our voices as one. these words of benediction by the Reverend Sarah Smalley. We choose an honest faith, not false positivity, not naive optimism, but a gritty and determined faith that holds the world both as it is and the world as we dream it might be. Leave from this place not optimistic but honest, and return full of questions, full of faith, full too of doubt. You will be in good company. Our worship has ended, and our service begins. Friends, go in peace.